Hello and welcome to another Stratrich podcast. So in today's discussion, we're covering the EU-India Free Trade Agreement. And it's been an agreement that's been 20 years in the making with on and off negotiations. And finally, on the 27th of January, 2026, the deal came into fruition. The deal encompasses 20 chapters with a number of annexures, and it's quite a document to unravel. So here with me today is Rajat Chawla, who has gone over the agreement in very detail, and he's going to take us through each of these points to help us understand what it means for foreign businesses, particularly the ones coming from Europe.
Thank you, Benjamin. It's glad to be here.
So Rajat, before we get into the specifics, and there are a lot of specifics in this deal, what does this FTA mean for businesses in EU coming to India? What are the implications for these businesses?
So, Benjamin, the reason, there are so many specifics in this India-EU FTA is because of the sheer size of the FTA, which affects the population, the combined population of India and EU. So
Right.
the number, I will give you a few numbers. So this FTA affects around 2 billion people. That's at least quarter of the world's population. And if you talk about another number, I will tell you that the EU companies pay around $4 billion in tariffs while importing goods into India. And typically, because of this FTA, 96% of these tariffs will actually go away.
Okay.
Which gives a super boost to both the economies. And thirdly, the current bilateral trade between India and EU is around $136 billion. And both India and Europe want to push this bilateral trade to around $200 billion in the nearest period. Due to these numbers and the sheer size of the people which this FTA is going to affect, the consumers this FTA is going to affect, this FTA is known as mother of all deals, and that is why it has a lot of specifics.
So what makes this FTA different from previous FTAs or existing FTAs that we have with other countries as well?
So Benjamin, there are two reasons. First, the depth of this FTA. This FTA has 20 chapters, 14 annexures. So it's humongous. It covers services, it covers SME, it covers carbon border adjustment, it covers food systems, it covers non-tariff barriers and more. And the second is the timing. The current geopolitical scenario where India was pushed by US tariffs to look for alternative trade agreements, and the Europe wanted to de-risk its supply chain from China. So actually it was win-win for both, where the 20 years of negotiation was completed in 18 months fast-track negotiations.
So it's been a long while. It's taken 20 years to unpack.
But it needed a trigger, and trigger did come.
Okay. So this is by no means a deal which is in isolation. So tell us a little bit about other deals that have happened during this time.
So you're very right. This is not a deal in isolation. India signed UK FTA in 2025. India signed another EFTA with Switzerland, Iceland, Norway, Liechtenstein in 2024. So with this EU deal and these other two deals, it practically opens up whole Europe from London to Lisbon to Zurich, and it systematically changes the whole tariff architecture of the world. So it's a very, very major deal and very, very big deal, and it is going to affect the trade as soon as it is operationalized.
So let's talk about possibly the most intriguing part of this entire agreement, which was the history, which took almost 20 years for the agreement to be signed. What went on?
2 decades is a big time. So this took that much time because of, three acts. The Act 1 related, to negotiations, which continued, for over 6 years between New Delhi and Brussels. And then in 2013, everything stalled. There were three major issues, which could not be agreed upon. First one was European cars in India. The second was Indian agriculture products to Europe. And the last one being the data protection rules.
Okay.
So due to these three issues, everything stalled. But then we discussed, that the trigger was the geopolitical issues,
right,
and the tariff barriers which came to India due to certain other countries. It's really a story of three acts. The Act 1 being that the negotiations started in 2007 under the broad-based trade investment agreement, which continued for 6 years between New Delhi and Brussels. By 2013, everything stalled.
Okay.
And there were three major issues which could not be agreed upon. The issue 1 being the European cars in the Indian market. The issue 2 being the Indian agriculture products in the EU market.
Okay.
And the last being the data protection agreement or the data protection issues, especially there being no framework in India.
So what's changed this time?
So this brings us to the Act 2 of the things, COVID came in, the pandemic actually exposed the supply chain of the world. So for Europe, China became a huge supply chain risk. And for India, it became a strategic competition. And then, more recently, US started imposing huge tariffs on Indian exports, which pushed both India and Europe to come back on the negotiating table. So in 2021, both started negotiating this FTA, and significantly they decided to negotiate the FTA into, the deal into three parts. One is the trade agreement, and the second is investment protection agreement, and third being the geographical indication agreement.
So Rajat, we've talked about Act 1 and 2. What about Act 3?
So the third track is all about execution. The trade track actually moved the fastest. In June 2022, formal negotiations resumed. And by 2025, 14 rounds of negotiations were concluded, from digital trade to sustainable food systems. Everything was concluded. So in fact, in January 2026, at the India-EU summit, which was held in New Delhi, both the European Commission President and the European Council President visited India on the Republic Day, and the deal was concluded. And the European Commission actually printed the provisional text on, I remember the date, that was February 27th, 2026.
So the EU President, von der Leyen, calls it the mother of all deals. So is there any substance to that, or is it primarily just marketing?
So the soundbite is great, but the substance is very real. In fact, again, the numbers, it affects 2 billion people. It affects 25% of the global GDP. Europe expects that it will double their trade with India by 2032. Now, in fact, the leaders of the European Union itself have said that this is the biggest opening India has given to any trade partner. So, in fact, these are their real words. So you can understand the magnitude of this deal. That is why it is known as mother of all deals.
So it's rightly or aptly named mother of all deals because of the magnitude of the...
So until and unless we have father of all deals, this remains the mother of all deals. Yeah. So this is going to increase the businesses and the trade for both India as well as Europe.
For sure.
That's what my estimate is.
Okay. So Rajat, we've talked about the big picture, about how India is really large and huge population, combined population of 2 billion people, and then we've also talked a little bit about the history. But let's come to a bit more specific sector-wise, look at
analysis.
How European businesses or trade companies can come to India and benefit. Can you take us through that?
So one of the biggest sector, which is one of the biggest sectors in India as well, and one of the sectors which would be positively affected would be the automobile sector.
Right.
So in fact, if you see currently, the duties which are applicable on import of automobiles from Europe is around 110%, which typically mean that European importers pay duties which are more than the worth of the car itself.
Okay.
So now under this FTA, they would be gradually reduced up to 10%.
Okay.
So that's a huge benefit from 110 to 10%. Now, but there are certain nuances.
Okay.
The overall limit for such preferential duties is around 250,000.
Okay.
And currently the electric vehicles are out of this preferential duty framework.
I see. Okay. So why EVs? I mean, EVs kind of make sense to bring to India. Is there any specific reason for that?
So the specific reason for that is India's own industrial policy. We are actually promoting the manufacturing of electric vehicles in India. We are giving production link incentives, PLIs, for extensive production of electric vehicles. Okay. So from 2027, extensive investment has to happen in the electric vehicles, and it's currently also happening. And what it will do is that by the time this preferential duty restriction goes away for electric vehicles, which is next 5 years, there would be a level playing field for Indian manufacturers. Okay. So it will help Indian manufacturers to actually compete with European manufacturers.
So it's more really for the benefit of Indian manufacturers.
Yes.
Then. Okay.
Yeah. So I think it's an appropriate industrial policy as well.
So Rajat, let's shift our focus to other sectors. There's manufacturing, which is huge in Germany and Sweden. What are the implications on that?
So, if you talk about manufacturing, then something comes into my mind is machinery sector. Okay. So, in fact, current duty structure on machinery is around 44%.
Okay.
So, as per this FTA, roughly half of it is eliminated on day one of its entry into force, and rest of them gradually is reduced over 10 years.
Okay.
And if you talk about numbers of European imports, go up to $1 trillion.
Wow. Okay.
And the India share is around 2.8%.
Okay.
And this means there is an enormous, scope where the German, Swedish, Italian automation or machinery manufacturers would be benefited out of this FTA.
Okay.
So in fact, if you talk about this will be trade, and once you export a machinery into a country like India, then you also need to give after sales services.
Okay.
So now at the end of the day, you will have to have some kind of presence in India, which will also help India to have more FDI, and also help Indians to have more jobs, and may also lead to some amount of transfer of technology to India. So that's quite promising.
Very promising.
Transfer technology is India what is asking for.
Right. So Rajat, what about chemicals and pharma?
So there is a significant change in chemicals and pharma.
Okay.
In fact, in case of chemicals, the current tariff is around 22%. It goes to zero.
Okay.
In case of pharma, again from 11% it goes to zero. In case of cosmetics, again 22% to zero. Even the FTA mentioned in case of ceramics, the tariff will go to zero. In case of medical instruments, again, the current tariff is around 6.7%, which typically will be eliminated in around 99% of those medical instruments.
Wow. Okay.
So that's a big change for European chemicals manufacturers, even in case of plastic. The plastic and plastic related things, it will go from 6.5 to 0.
Okay.
So the big change for European chemical and allied manufacturers like Bayer, like BASF. So it will be a great boost. But reduction in tariff doesn't mean that non-tariff barriers will go away.
Okay.
You will still require registration under the registration requirements of India for chemicals. So tariff goes away, but non-tariff barriers still remain.
And Rajat, what about agri-foods? It's been a sticking point over the last 20 years.
Yeah, it has been, and I think it was one of the major points for this FTA negotiations. And anyway, India wants to protect its agriculture sector because most of the population is dependent on the agriculture sector.
Right.
We cannot have a situation where the foreign goods compete with our domestic goods.
Right.
And even Europeans are also quite protective about their agriculture sector. So there has been reduction or a phased reduction in foods like olive oil, goat meat, wines, and other allied areas in food and food related processed foods. But both the countries have been quite sensitive to it and have either done reductions in non-sensitive areas or have done phased reductions in FTA.
Okay. So I think we can comfortably say that French wine, Dutch cheese, all of these things are going to get easy access to India now.
So you're very right in case of wine and olive oil. That's a dramatic decrease in the tariffs. But cheese is quite complex. India has its own dairy sensitivities. But I would like to say the European food export sector, which was blocked by around 36% of tariffs, has now got an access to 1.45 billion Indian consumers. So that's a big win for Europe as well.
So Rajat, while tariffs get a lot of the headlines, it's a lot of non-tariff related things that have a lot of weight. Specifically, things that come to mind are food safety standards, product quality. So what does the FTA have to do with this?
So FTA has dedicated 2 chapters. Chapter 5 dealing with phytosanitary and sanitary measures related to food safety, animal health and plant health. And chapter 6 dealing with technical barriers. So which typically deal with the product standards, technical regulation and conformity standards. So these non-tariff area related barriers actually make or break the deals, whenever there is a trade dealing between one company which is selling and the company which is buying.
So these non-tariff related considerations
are very important.
Very important. So Rajat, can a European test report from a European lab work in an Indian setting?
Not automatically, Benjamin. What the treaty specifically says that international standards are welcome. The working group, envisaged by the treaty, is supposed to work on a pathway where mutual recognition is possible. So currently, it's not automatically possible, but there is a pathway which didn't exist before the treaty.
Rajat, a lot of the headlines again have been around goods, cars, wine, cheese, etc. And then we had this discussion earlier before our podcast about the services, and I think services play a very important role in the FTA. So tell us a little bit about that.
So Benjamin, services is a real game changer because of this FTA. If you talk about numbers, the India-EU services trade hit around 60 billion euros in 2024, out of which Europe has exported around 26 billion euros and has imported around 33 billion euros. And but the real problem is that the Indian services is not as on the same level playing field as Europe is. But this FTA actually changes that. So because of this FTA, we expect that services may even surpass the goods trade.
Wow.
So it is going to be a big game changer for services.
So now in services, let's take a look at an example of a consulting firm or a law firm that's looking to set up in India. How does this FTA benefit these firms?
So typically the professional services are covered under the Annexure 8B of the treaty.
Okay.
So the treaty actually sets up a framework for
Okay.
mutual recognition of professional qualifications, that is MRAs. So that typically means that a person who has studied or taken a professional qualification in Europe
Okay.
can practice in India without giving a full written exam. So it's a plus for architects or lawyers or accountants.
Okay.
The treaty gives 12 months to the professional bodies to after entry into force. It gives 12 months to look into the priority sectors and set up these mutual recognition procedures.
Okay.
Now, one caution is that it's not mandatory. It will depend on each professional body or to set up these parameters of mutual recognition.
Okay.
But once professionals start coming to India, or Indian professionals start going to Europe, it will increase the business and trade. That's the idea.
Okay. Rajat, let's talk about the huge IT sector in India, and it's been one of the engines of growth for the country. How does the FTA impact this industry?
So you're very right. The Indian IT sector is the backbone of Indian economy, and the Indian services sectors has actually got access to, due to this FTA, around 144 sub-service sectors in Europe.
Okay.
So it gives a huge boost to ITS companies, financial services companies, engineering companies, and other companies to make their inroads formally into Europe. And for European companies, that means that there would be more competition in their domestic market.
Okay.
But let's see a fact that Indian service companies are quite aggressive as well as competitive while doing business, and they've already set up their footprints. You already have TCS, Wipro and Infosys having large contracts or large businesses in various European countries.
Okay.
So it's going to be a win-win, and especially for ITS sector, especially gives them the opportunity to have a lot of joint ventures, a lot of outsourcing opportunities from Europe into India. And we have our demographic dividend, which we need to take care of, and it gives a lot of opportunities for Indian IT and outsourcing companies to do business in Europe.
So it's like a win-win for both
Obviously,
countries.
It's a win-win for both the countries, and in fact, it will help India to create a lot of jobs, especially technical jobs and AI jobs, where Europe will become a big market for them.
Right, interesting. So Rajat, we've talked about the service side of things. Let's move to the people. And mobility is going to be a big game changer under the new FTA. So tell us a little bit about that.
So there's a lot which has been agreed upon global mobility. So typically, I divide global mobility into 4 or 5 categories. The first category is intercorporate transfers, which typically means that if, let's say, a European company has a subsidiary in India, it can freely transfer its employees to India, and vice versa. Let's say Indian company has subsidiary in Europe, so it can transfer its employees. Let's say a TCS employee in Bangalore can be easily transferred to, let's say, in Frankfurt. And one thing additional, the FTA also agrees to give certain rights for the spouses of the transferees to work in the destination countries. Now, talking about the second category, which is typically related to business visitors, especially the short-term visits, so the FTA also agrees, for short-term meetings, trainings, etc., such visas or permits will be issued.
Okay.
Third category is also for certain contractual service providers, especially in the area of, let's say, management consulting, architecture, engineering, consultancy, those kind of things. Certain contractual service providers will also be given work permits. Also, something new which has come up in this FTA is for independent professionals. The FTA opens a lot of categories for self-employed independent professionals to actually provide services both in Europe as well as vice versa in India. So that's something new. And the fifth category relates to students, So the FTA, on a holistic basis agrees that there would be, work permits issued to, or visas issued for students, both in the European side of things and India side of things. Details have still to come out, but overall FTA is really good for global mobility, and which will help the implementation of the FTA in the manner it is required.
So these are very important changes in global mobility.
Yeah, which FTA actually covers.
So Rajat, the FTA also covers something on social security. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
So social security has been a very area where both side of governments need to work upon, because what usually happens is, let's say, an European employee who's coming to India actually contributes in various social security schemes by law, and the benefit of that social security scheme is not generally given to that employee, because by the time the benefit is due, that employee is back to his own country.
Right.
Now the FTA agrees that they will work upon the social security agreements over next 5 years. So it has still to be seen how social security agreements will actually come into play, but if they really come into play, it will help the employees to avoid unnecessary social security contributions in both the jurisdictions.
So Rajat, let's turn to small and medium enterprises. And while the larger companies have the infrastructure and have all the necessary resources in place, what is the benefits for the small enterprises?
So FTA actually by design actually helps small and medium enterprises to participate in the trade which is envisaged under this FTA. So in fact, there is a particular chapter on SMEs in this FTA, that is chapter 12, which actually helps in 3 ways, where SMEs can use this FTA to increase their import and export. Yeah, so firstly, the FTA allows information access at a greater level, which has not been done in past. So FTA mandates all the jurisdictions under FTA to maintain all the information publicly available. So let's say any importer in India wants to check what is the tariff rate, then he can simply go on a particular website, put its HSN and look at what is going to be tariff applicable in its destination jurisdiction. Second is the contact point. The FTA mandates that the jurisdictions involved in the FTA will maintain particular contact points, which typically means that if there is any issue in export or import, you can simply contact that contact point, and that contact point will again contact its corresponding contact point in your destination jurisdiction to sort out that issue. So you don't have to yourself go and directly contact the destination jurisdiction authorities. Let's say something is stuck in Indian customs for a French exporter, then let's say the contact point in France will contact the contact point in India and will help to clear those goods or clarify the query by the Indian customs. Third, this FTA by design actually helps SMEs, which it helps in the way that it allows self-certification of rules of origin. It also helps, at the end of the day, basically exempting you to mention the country of origin for certain value of consignments. There are de minimis rules of 10%, where you can use it to actually generally in case of SMEs, the supply chains are not well defined, so you can use this rule to actually take the FTA benefits. So by design, there are various points in this FTA which helps SMEs to do both import and export. So we understand the growth of SMEs will lead to increase in trade in both Europe and India. So that way FTA is pro SME.
So Rajat, tell us a little bit about CBAM. It's a point that's been contested and heavily politically scrutinized. What is the impact of this for Indian businesses that are looking to go to Europe?
So CBAM, which typically stands for Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism, has been the highly negotiated thing in the FTA. So CBAM typically is kind of a carbon tax or a carbon price which is put by Europe on any carbon intensive sector which wants to export its goods to Europe. So at the end of the day, what exactly happens is that if you put a carbon price, your benefit of the reduced tariffs for certain sectors like aluminium, steel, fertilizers, and those highly carbon intensive sectors actually go away. So they don't have any tariff benefits if you actually add the carbon tax on that.
So, I mean, considering the FTA, does India get an exemption?
No, India doesn't get an exemption.
Okay.
It does get a transition period. So at the end of the day, the carbon intensive sectors of India, typically steel, aluminum, if they want to export to Europe, will have to invest in carbon reduction technology. So typically any steel plant, who is dependent on coal furnaces will have to go for certain furnaces which are powered by renewable energy to actually produce steel if they want to export it to Europe, if they really want to enjoy the FTA benefits.
So Rajat, we've talked a lot about the benefits for European companies, but what about Indian companies? I think it's an important point, especially because Indian companies and European companies will be negotiating at some point. So how does this level the playing field for them?
So Benjamin, that's a very good question. So India has got access to around 97% of tariff lines, which covers around 99% of the export value. So all the labor intensive sectors like textile and apparel, leather, you have gems and jewelry, you have marine, and then you also have chemicals. They get preferential treatment. So combining this free trade agreement with UK's FTA, you actually get access to whole Europe. So at the end of the day, adding to that, if you look at the services sector, India gets access to ITS sector, professional services sector, construction sector, and even education services. So this is a huge opportunity for Indian companies to become more competitive in terms of the European companies. So if you see the European companies, they have certain set of dominance currently, but through this FTA, Indian companies will be able to compete with European companies and will give a tough competition to them as well.
So Rajat, let's talk about the rules of origin. I've heard that it's something that most FTAs and companies using the FTA, this is something that they often stumble upon. So tell us a little bit about why this happens and why it's such a block for them.
So Benjamin, you're exactly right. So the FTA utilization rate is just below 70%. That typically means 30% or more companies actually fail using FTA. So either they are unable to understand, how to use FTA, or they're not able to prove something known as rules of origin. So if you're not able to, prove that your product actually originated from India or Europe, and you're not able to, actually produce documentation around it in your supply chain, then you typically cannot use the preferential treatment which is available in the FTA.
So why does India actually care where the product originated from?
So for example, let's say there is a Chinese manufacturer. Nothing against China, but some people may use it negatively. So Chinese manufacturer ships any product to EU and puts a made in EU stamp and uses the preferential treatment between India, EU, FTA and ships it back to India as a made in EU product. Had there been a rule of origin thing which is there in this FTA, they would not be able to do that. So to stop this kind of a gaming, rules of origin is very important.
So how does a company prove their origin?
So, there is a specific chapter in the FTA, that is chapter 3, which leads down several tests, So, for example, there is a test which means that the product is wholly originating from the originating source, either India or EU. Then there is change in classification at HS code level test.
Okay.
Then there is a value-based test, which typically allows you to source around 40% of your material from non-originating country, which typically mean outside India or outside EU.
Okay.
Then there are certain exemptions also, like 10% de minimis test, which gives you some kind of a relief while sourcing for rules of origin. So this way, you are able to determine your rules of origin.
Okay. So what is the documentation that needs to be taken into
So that's
consideration?
very interesting, this FTA. They have gone for self-certification kind of a thing, which, unless, there are certain exceptional items. So you can use that self-certification, upload into a designated electronic portal, use IEC number in case of India and REX number in case of Europe.
Okay.
So it's pretty simple as compared to earlier.
So Rajat, what about data localization? It's something that's been a hot topic. So tell us a little bit about that.
So data localization has been a red line for India. So the FTA respects that.
Okay.
So it doesn't require cross-border flow of data by either jurisdiction. So the domestic law overrides data localization. So you can keep your data locally. It allows countries or the companies to keep their data locally, and has no mandate for cross-border data flow.
So Rajat, it's been a really long podcast and a very interesting one, I must say.
Yeah.
But final thoughts for businesses from Europe coming to India? Any advice? Any consultative thoughts that you would like to put across?
So at the end of the day, anybody who wants to use this FTA or this once in a lifetime kind of opportunity, where the largest economy is probably second and India being fourth or fifth largest economies working together on the trade. World, covering the huge population as well as the huge numbers which are involved in India-EU trade, should start actually now looking at understanding, various joint venture opportunities with Indian manufacturers, or Indians should look at market opportunities in Europe.
Okay.
First, study the market. Get yourself REX registered if you are not. Look at your various HS codes, where your product actually falls. Look at various tariff categories where you will get reductions. Understand the business and the regulatory and the tax climate of the destination, either being Europe or India. Identify an advisor. Look at your tax structuring if you're going to incorporate in either of the jurisdictions. Study especially in case of India, study the FDI rules, and typically have a business plan in place, so that you should be at least be ready by the end of 2026, which where this FTA, or early 2027, where this FTA will become really operational. So it's once in a lifetime opportunity, and once this gets activated, it will affect a lot of businesses too, and will give them a growth momentum which they are expecting.
Okay, great. So I guess that's it for now, Rajat.
Yeah. So I think India and Europe, it's best wishes to businesses of both the countries.
Yes.
And
Absolutely.
good luck to them. And in case if you require any kind of suggestion or advisory, we are here to help you.
And do visit stratrich.com if you have any questions about business setup, or doing business in India specifically. And Rajat, once again, thank you so much for joining us.
It's my pleasure,
And thank you to all our viewers for joining us in this podcast. And we welcome the next podcast coming up very soon.